Within the Bath. Within the Bath. Every bath begins with a vision, where ideas and strategies define directions, from the depth of strategic thinking to ever-evolving dynamics of the world. A program broadcast in English brings insight into the journeys that shape the course of individuals, institutions, and nations. Prepared and presented by Mohra bint Zubair Al Zubair and audio director, Warrant Officer Ward bin Salim Al Rawahi.
Assalamu alaikum, our dear friends. Welcome back to Within the Path. Last episode, we explored what dynamic leadership means through the experiences of Muhammad Al-Ardi, focusing specifically on the first chapter of his book, Connecting to the Future, a blueprint for dynamic leadership. What that chapter offered us was a grounded understanding of how leadership forms over time. One of the themes running through Al-Ardi's story was a genuine desire to learn. Alongside that came a clear recognition that growth carries challenge. Leadership, in this dynamic sense, means embracing that challenge for one's own growth and for the growth of the collective. We also saw that leadership does not begin at the moment of appointment or authority. It is nurtured within a person, developing gradually over time. And at the heart of that process sits moral grounding, which shapes how leadership is lived and practiced over time. Today, we carry that reflection forward by focusing specifically on moral development in military leadership. The reading we are drawing from is titled The 4 Stages of Moral Development in Military Leadership, written by Joseph J. Thomas. The reading emphasizes the importance of providing military officers with education in the moral aspect of leadership. It also recognizes that leadership development takes many forms: intellectual, physical, and moral, and that moral development is often the most demanding. And this makes absolute sense, because morality is deeply tied to our humanity, and it is personal. It speaks to values, conscience, and one's inner alignment. It can be taught and discussed, but living it actively calls for something deeper. The reading also acknowledges that not all leaders will have the opportunity or even the ability to exercise moral ambition in its fullest sense, and still, its message remains essential. Every military officer benefits from education in the moral dimensions of leadership, and this point carries particular weight in military contexts, as the military calls for strength and order, and morality guides how this strength is exercised. As we discussed in episode 9 on resilience in the military, this is an environment where responsibility is heavy, demands are constant, and individuals face both physical strain and psychological pressure. Leadership plays a central role here, shaping whether stress is experienced as something that overwhelms or as a challenge that allows growth. Good leadership builds morale, trust, and unity, and can influence how people interpret difficulties. The reading presents moral development as a progression. It begins with compliance, where behavior is guided by rules, authority, and instruction. At this stage, discipline is learned, order is established, and right and wrong are understood through adherence to external standards. From there comes moral understanding. This is where values begin to be internalized. Leaders begin to understand why standards exist, and responsibility becomes more personal, and judgment is shaped by an emerging sense of accountability rather than instruction alone. Then comes moral maturity, which carries particular weight in a military context. Moral maturity reflects an ability to exercise judgment with awareness of responsibility and with an understanding that decisions are connected to one's nation, service, and mission. At this stage, leaders recognize that responsibility extends beyond the immediate moment. Only after this progression does the reading introduce moral ambition as, and I quote from the reading, the final and ultimate stage of moral development. It represents the pinnacle of self-actualization. Moral ambition is the active rather than passive pursuit of virtuous behavior, not only in self, but in all members within the individual sphere of influence. Our dear friends, stay tuned and we'll be back right after this break. Our dear friends, welcome back. Going back to the concept of moral ambition, we begin to see just how profound it really is. When it is described as the pinnacle of self-actualization, it also tells us how demanding it is to reach. Reaching this level requires great inner strength. It calls for self-restraint, for managing anger, frustration, and impulse, and for remaining steady under pressure and difficult circumstances. Our ability to remain guided by principle in difficult moments reveals our true inner strength. This is why that moral base matters so deeply. It keeps us grounded in our humanity when circumstances are challenging, and it influences not only the individual, but all those within their sphere of influence. The reading offers a powerful example of a morally ambitious leader in George Washington during the Newburgh Address in 1783. At that time, officers were frustrated over unpaid wages and uncertain about their future. Emotions were high, and the situation had grown serious. As the reading explains, it appeared that a military coup was brewing. Conspirators assembled in Newburgh, New York, and invited George Washington to address them, many with the intention of offering him the position of emperor or even king. Washington immediately saw the danger that would threaten the newly founded liberties of the country. And it was within this tense and uncertain moment that he stood before them. As the reading recounts, and I quote, "In the process of addressing the assembled officers and promising to appeal to Congress for all that was owed, he slowly pulled a pair of spectacles from his pocket. The room fell deadly silent, for no one knew the great general required eyeglasses. Even such a simple device to aid the aging Washington was treated with disbelief. As he fumbled to adjust his glasses, he stated apologetically, 'Gentlemen, you will permit me to put on my spectacles, for I have not only grown gray, but nearly blind in the service of my country.' The army's differences with their civilian masters were resolved immediately. Many in the room welled up with tears. A clear, important message had been sent by the nation's greatest soldier. The army was the servant protector of the people, and the people were directly represented by their elected officials. End quote. That moment changed the room. In that instant, officers saw their leader as a human being who had given himself fully, physically, mentally, and emotionally, in service. And his honesty carried profound moral weight. It reconnected people to their shared sense of purpose and reminded them of their collective responsibility. And with that, I would like to leave you with this line from the reading as a reflection on all that we've explored today and on the lasting impact of moral leadership in the military. Morally ambitious officers have not only determined outcomes on the battlefield, but they have changed civilization. What a powerful statement, and truly, what unfolds on the battlefield does not remain there. It shapes the course of history, and just as importantly, it tests the foundations of our humanity. Thank you for being with me. Until next time, this is Mohra Al Zubair from Within the Path.
Within the Bath. Every bath begins with a vision, where ideas and strategies define directions, from the depth of strategic thinking to ever-evolving dynamics of the world. A program broadcast in English brings insight into the journeys that shape the course of individuals, institutions, and nations. Prepared and presented by Mohra bint Zubair Al Zubair and audio director, Warrant Officer Ward bin Salim Al Rawahi.